What up, everybody? Welcome to Wrestle Recap in 2025. My name is Michelle Tate.
My name is Justin Tate.
And we are still, in this brand new year, the only brother-sister duo who takes you on the journey of wrestling throughout the decades.
And Happy New Year to everybody, including you, Michelle. How was your New Year?
It was pretty good. I just watched football because one of the playoff games was on that night, and I did stay up till midnight. I'm just like antisocial, I guess. I just didn't want to go anywhere. What did you do?
Well, we actually have a thing that we started doing a couple years back where we start a new, really big Lego set on New Year's Eve. We don't have to finish it that night. We just start one. So we did that until just before 11, and then went to bed, watched the Disney World stream of the countdown there, and that was our night.
You sound just about as cool as me.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Do you have any resolutions?
Make Wrestle Recap and Wrestle Stats kick ass.
I mean, they already do. We just have to get more people to realize it.
Oh, that's true. Well, I will convince them.
Yes, and this is the year that we do our first con, so I'm very excited about it.
Yes, it's going to be a whole lot of fun. We're going to see everybody in Indianapolis for Squared Circle Expo, and they're starting to release some other wrestler names that are going to be there, and it's going to be a big show.
Absolutely. I know that Swerve Strickland's going to be there.
That's right.
Tons of names that we've talked about on here. So I'm really excited. But for the first time in a while, we're actually like recording in current time, like with releasing, so we can talk about some current wrestling. So that's fun. So first of all, we got to talk about how AEW has officially debuted on Max, or formerly HBO Max. I didn't watch it on Max when it went on this first Dynamite of the new year, just because I was watching it on my Hulu Live, but they really changed up some of the lighting and the camera angles. It looked good.
And the theme song is now "I'm So Excited" by the Pointer Sisters.
That's weird.
And they have a guy named Cope. So things are going well.
Well, no. Okay, the Pointer Sisters thing, that was weird. But the Cope thing, I think that's their attempt to get into the Gen Z children generation, because people on Twitter, they'll argue about like football or wrestling or whatever, and then they'll always be like cope or cry more. And so I think that's like a cool word to say right now, and maybe that's what he's going for. I don't know.
Well, I just think that one guy on the roster should be honored that they moved to Max, and that's MJF. They moved to a whole streaming service named after him.
Yeah, but I'm sure Max Caster thinks it's about him because he thinks he's the best thing in the world right now.
Oh, Anthony Bowens has had so much enough of his crap.
Oh, he so has. I'm just like, what are y'all waiting on? Like, it is so clear they're splitting. Like, I feel like they've been splitting for 6 months.
They have been. It just takes a while.
Gosh. Well, speaking of new platforms, Raw is about to debut on Netflix. We had our last episode of Raw on USA. It was a good one, man. There were some great promos. We got a New Day sucks chant. That was crazy. So what are you looking forward to on Netflix? Do you think like we'll have one big show and then it'll just kind of or do you think there will be a lot of changes?
I don't know about changes. I mean, they've changed the logo, of course. I would assume maybe a new theme song is coming, but especially that first one on Netflix is going to be a big show, pay-per-view quality show, really. So I'm looking forward to just watching it all go down and see where we go from here. What about you?
Yeah, I can't wait. Really, I'm just mostly looking forward to the CM Punk versus Seth Rollins match. Who do you think is going to win that one?
Oh, that is so hard. I don't know, because I could see, it makes sense either way. I'm just gonna go with my gut here and looking forward into the future. I think it's got to be Punk.
I agree with you, but I don't like it. I agree with you, but yeah.
I think it makes the most sense right now.
Well, and there's the whole speculation that it's going to be Punk versus Roman at Mania. And I almost kind of wonder, especially with Heyman being involved, if they're going to try to start a Punk heel turn or a more like he's kind of subtle heel, subtle face right now. Like I almost wonder if they're going to move into a big Punk heel turn and maybe he'll cheat to beat Seth Rollins to, kind of keep Seth on top. But I don't know. I see Roman being the face and Punk being the heel at Mania. I don't know why.
It could be. It could be. We got a whole new year of good stuff to come. So and you gotta think at some point we're gonna see Punk versus Cena again.
Oh,
So
yeah,
and that's what
definitely.
kicks off on Monday as well, the John Cena retirement tour. It starts on Monday. So big year. I'm excited for good stuff from all the companies this year.
Oh, yeah, but let me just tell you, I'm freaking watching Jeff Jarrett go on TV this week and be like, "Well," and he's holding his boots and string. He's like, "I'm not retiring. This is my retirement contract." And I'm like, John Cena's like 30 years younger than Jeff Jarrett. I don't think Cena's done after this. No way. No freaking way.
I think he is. I think he
No.
is.
He will come
Yeah.
back like 5, 10 years down the road and show up when he's old. Like, that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna
And
happen.
he won't run to the ring anymore, though. Excuse me. He'll just walk down there and be like, "Hi, everybody."
That's pretty much the way to do it, and people will be excited to see that.
Of course.
Well, speaking of people I was excited to see, Mr. Kenny Omega has finally returned after a nearly deadly bout of diverticulitis. Apparently, like if he would have waited like another day, he probably would have died.
Yeah, that stuff is no joke. That's actually something that Brock Lesnar dealt with, had surgery for it as well. It's a terrible thing. You basically have stomach cramps all the time. You got to poop all the time,
Justin, do you have
and
diverticulitis?
I should probably check that out.
I'm convinced I have IBS. I am convinced, and because we are related, maybe you do too.
Maybe I do have RBF. Is that similar?
Well,
Resting bitch face.
our sister definitely has that, so you
Oh,
definitely
okay.
got that with her.
Okay. Okay.
One more thing I wanted to talk about and really ask you about before we kind of move on to the episode is you got to attend the Undertaker One Dead Man show and you were a VIP. You got to meet him. So tell me all about that show and meeting him. What was that like?
It was so cool, and we drove. We were supposed to fly, but then we found out we had to be there earlier than we originally thought. So he said, "Well, cancel the tickets. Let's just drive." There was traffic that got us to the point where, for the pre-show meet and greet that we got, we were the last in line and
Mm,
almost didn't make that. I mean,
I
we're
would have been
talking a
so
couple
stressed.
of minutes, and we would have missed it. And but yeah, got to meet him real quick. It was just a quick, brief, "Hey, how you doing?" Shake the hand, and let me tell you something. I consider myself a fully grown man, but when you shake hands with the Undertaker, I personally thought to myself, "Oh, I'm not a man. That's a man." The guy's hands, I mean, they swallowed mine whole. And
Crushed
and
it.
and so yeah, and so we get the picture, and then he does the show. He went over 2 hours on stage telling old stories, especially about his start in wrestling there in Dallas. He actually mentioned a guy that I worked with at XCW in
Wow.
Denton way back in the day, who was one of the guys who got him started. So it was great. But one of my favorite parts was, how Undertaker, he used to have kind of that side eye that he would give people that was just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that person messed up." Well, at some
Hmm.
point during the show, some guy in the crowd yelled something out. I don't remember what. And Undertaker stops what he was saying and just gives him that side eye. And the crowd's going, "Oh." And after about 5 to 10 seconds of that side eye, Taker goes, "Still got it, don't I?"
Dang, you have
So
to be really dumb to heckle the Undertaker.
it was a lot of fun. It was a great show. I had a blast.
Well, excellent. That makes me very happy. Your wife did very good on your Christmas present. You know what I got for Christmas? Oh man, I got
What?
a whole big display. Like it's artsy, man. Someone put this together and it has every signature slash autograph from every main cast member of Beverly Hills 90210.
That's a pretty good one. So
Include
somebody must have gotten you that who's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it even includes Luke Perry and Shannon Doherty, who of course have passed away. So, it
Yeah.
made me so happy. But Justin, we've got a show to talk about.
Yeah, let's get into some old wrestling. I mean, there's too much current stuff. Let's talk about the old stuff.
Yeah, let's do it. But first, we got to get in that time machine.
Oh, So did the time machine just take us back to a few days ago when it was 2024, or is it like?
I hope so. 2025 hasn't started out that great. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going around the world, so I don't know. But yeah, what do we got? What are we talking about, Justin?
Today we are talking about NWA WCW Halloween Havoc 1989, subtitled Settling the Score. Took place on October 28th, 1989 from the Philadelphia Civic Center in Philadelphia, PA, which was demolished in 2005. The Civic Center was, not all of Philadelphia. That would be catastrophic. The attendance for the show, 7,300, a little bit smaller than what we've seen, but that's all right. Our commentators here tonight are Bob Caudle and Jim Ross, and the number one song in the U.S. on October 28th, 1989, well, it's by somebody who you can call Janet or Miss Jackson if you're nasty. Yeah, I like it. I like the groove. I like it. What do you think about that one?
I mean, it's fine. Like I had never heard it because really I was thinking, I'm like, I can name probably 100 Michael Jackson songs, but Janet Jackson, like all I think of with her is the hands holding her boobs. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
That,
yes,
that
yes.
album cover. That's all I can think about.
And the whole Super Bowl thing, right?
Oh yeah. What's up with her boobs, man? That's crazy.
I don't know. I don't know. And I don't intend to find out.
Good. Well, background on this show. This was the first ever Halloween Havoc, but obviously the event would continue throughout the life of WCW and even still exists to this day as an annual show on NXT, which makes me so happy. Obviously, I love Halloween. This is my favorite show.
And it was a great one to play on WCW NWO Revenge because the entranceway like had the big scary thing. And yeah, it was cool.
Yes, but Justin, you got to hit me with some 2025
Wrestle stats.
Wrestle stats.
There we go. All right, let's talk about the wrestlers on the show. The average age of wrestlers on the show, 31 years old. There's a three-way tie for the youngest, all at the age of 24. Fatu, the Samoan Savage, and Shane Douglas of the Dynamic Dudes. The oldest one on this show, Terry Funk, at the age of 45. So as we go on through all the stats, nothing else really changed, but here's the fun one. Here's the important one. Here's the one we want to know. Out of the 205 wrestlers that we have watched on Wrestle Recap, 117 of them are still alive to this day for a percentage of 57.07%. Mm-hmm. I love it. And here's some more good news. A lot of times, right here at this point in the show, we tell you which wrestlers on the show we will never see again in another match on Wrestle Recap. Doesn't apply here. That's right. We're going to see all these wrestlers again. So nothing to worry about there. So let's get right on into the beginning of the show. Once you flip this on your Peacock machine, we're zoomed in on a full moon with creepy tree branches. And it's spooky and it's eerie. And then we zoom out to the dumbest looking graveyard imaginable. Imagine if a kid was given a copy of Microsoft Paint and told to draw a graveyard. That's what we're looking at.
No, you're right. And like, I just want to comment on how freaking ominous it was to see all of these old wrestlers' names on tombstones, because there are 4 tombstones and it's Flair. It says Flair, Sting, Muta, and Funk. And that is not fun to see in 2025 because let's see, we've already lost Terry Funk, and the other 3, they're not spring chickens. So I'm like, this is not fun watching this late.
they weren't very forward thinking in that, but that's okay. Also buried here in this graveyard, any hope that this main event is going to live up to the hype, because my God. Anyway, head to an overhead shot of the crowd. Jim Ross and Bob Caudle welcome us to the show before tossing us to Gordon Soley backstage. And Gordon is wearing a loud gold tie. I'm talking bling, big bling around the neck of Gordon Solie. And he's standing in front of a branch with a skull in it. So that, those grew on trees because, it's Halloween. Gordon pumps up tonight's main event in the Thunderdome before tossing things to Christopher Cruz. Now, Chris Cruz, we haven't seen him on Wrestle Recap before. He's an interesting case, okay? He's a backstage interviewer for WCW. Back in the day, he was openly mocked in the locker room for giving inside info to Dave Meltzer. And lots of people were doing that at the time, but Chris was so obvious about it that they started giving him fake news to leak to Meltzer, just so it would come out and they would prove that he was doing this. Now, these days, he's actually still ruffling feathers. He's contacting, or has contacted, we should say, allegedly, state athletic commissions trying to get various wrestling companies in trouble, including AEW, who he's done it to before.
What? Like, what is he trying to get them in trouble for?
One time he called the fire marshal and said that there was too many people going to be in there. And then an AEW one, I think it's because there was too much blood or something like that. Like, he just has, he's one of these online people that has nothing better to do, really.
That's so annoying. Anyway,
Chris Stooge here pumps up tonight's card before tossing things to our ring announcer, Gary Michael Capetta, as we go to our first match of the night.
Yes, we do. We go to this singles match, which is Mike Rotunda versus the Z-Man, which... is that like a Z-Pack? Like, what is this? What is happening?
That's what he carries around his waist. He keeps his pins in and his wallet. His Z-Pack. Yeah.
Got it. So we've actually seen both these guys. Mike Rotunda, obviously. We saw him on the Great American Bash in 89, and he's 31 on this pay-per-view. And the Z-Man, now, we've never heard him called this, but we saw him last at WWF WrestleMania 3 as Tom Zink.
Yes.
And I'll go more on that later. And he is about the same age. He's 30. So let's get right on into it. Okay. Maybe I'm crazy. The ropes have been white, yellow, and blue for the last few shows on WCW/NWA, right? But have the turnbuckles always been yellow?
I don't think they have, but the funny thing is whenever I think about a WCW ring, especially in the late 90s, I think about yellow turnbuckles.
I like it. I dig it. It really makes it pop.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the ring here looks really cool. I did always like it when they had the darker canvas, but that's okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I know I already touched on this, but this dang Z-Man, Tom Zink, I swear I've never seen this man in my life. He doesn't look familiar. He doesn't look, no.
So like you said, he was at WrestleMania 3 where we last saw him. He teamed with Rick Martel as the Can-Am Connection to go against Bob Orton and Don Morocco. How could you forget, huh?
I am a terrible wrestling fan because I have no recollection of any of this.
Nobody does. Nobody does.
Well, I want to know, why is Mike Rotunda wearing what I call a post office thumb? You know those rubber things? Like, is he going to file
the finger
paperwork?
condom?
Yes, but it's on his thumb. And I was like, why the hell is he wearing that thing?
Well, I mean, considering his gimmick in the WWF, it's gonna fit here in the next few years.
Oh, that's right. He was like a tax collector, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so lame. Like, how does someone so cool as Mike Rotunda go to that? But
right.
Well, the people in the audience, they have some creepy masks on, and it makes sense, because it's Halloween Havoc. But those like ceramic, I almost think it's kind of New Orleans-y because I saw some of them in y'all's hotel at Disney World that was based on New Orleans. Those ceramic masks with like the cool, like, quote, makeup. A lot of people are wearing those in the crowd. And it was a big thing. I remember in the 90s, we had some on our wall in my bedroom.
Yeah.
But it looks like the purge is about to start. You see all these creepy white faces just like out there. Oof.
Yeah, apparently there's some like DJ out there or something that wears one of those as well. Like nobody knows what he looks like, and he like even wears it when he's not on stage. I just saw him. I don't even remember the name of this guy.
That's weird.
Go figure. But so there are 3 kids in the front row: a pudgy white kid, a black kid, and a scrawny white kid. And I saw these 3 kids. I'm like, that's the Dudley Boys origin story right there.
It probably is. It could be. You don't know. Also in the audience, I named him. We have the Clapper. Oh, the Clapper.
Oh.
Okay. He is front row. He's wearing glasses and a cap, and he is an intense clapper, and he claps a lot. And like, I'm gonna keep an eye on him throughout this show because like he even tries to start chants, but it's claps instead. It's like, but then no one does
You
it.
know, you know, this was 1989. The product hawked on TV around that time was the clapper. Maybe he's just trying to turn the lights off.
Maybe that's really funny. Today I
Just
walked
like
in.
it's too bright. It's too dark.
Today I walked into a client's office and I said, "Hey y'all, did y'all know that now like today we are the same distance from year 2000 to 2050 and the lights went off." And I was like, "What just happened?" And they're like, "The power went out. Look what you did." I was like, "Oops, my bad." It was very weird. But yeah, so this is very obvious something I'm about to say, but this is the first time I had this thought. So the audience seems pretty disinterested in the match, and I don't blame them. There's no stakes or anything, but no one is looking down at their phones because they didn't have them. So everyone is just facing forward and looking bored. And I'm like,
Yes.
wow, we didn't have the distraction of a cell phone back then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it seemed like a theater audience, honestly.
Mhm.
Like they were just sitting there politely watching a show. It was very, very odd to see. I think I saw Jason Hervey out there again. I'm pretty sure. And he was sitting near a guy who looks like Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh my god, I love Uncle Rico looks like our dad, I swear. He does.
Can you imagine Uncle Rico at a wrestling? Like if he was a former wrestler instead, he's like, see that guy there? I could have body slammed him over the mountains.
I feel
Then
like
he
that's like
throws a
Jeff Jarrett.
then he throws a steak at Orange Cassidy's head.
Meat match, meat. Well, Mike Rotunda, he wins the match in just a little over 13 minutes, but that pin was questionable. Like even just seeing it the first time, I was like, that's questionable. But then they had the great idea to show it in slow motion, where you clearly see Mike Rotunda's shoulder getting up just before the 3 count. Whoops.
Yeah, not a good start to this show. Not what you would call a hot opener, but I have hope. Maybe it'll get better.
Yes, well, we're going to head backstage with Mr. Chris Cruz, who is backstage with Bruno Sammartino.
What?
What? And let me just say this, like, why is Chris Cruz the younger replica of Gordon Sully? Like, is it just the glasses?
I'm not sure. Instead of going he goes I don't
I
know.
thought you were going to say, aha, or something a little more, energy. But anyway, Chris and Bruno are in front of this incredible, like spooky, woodsy backdrop. Like, I know it's super corny. It looks like they picked it up at like Spirit Halloween clearance, but I am loving this theming because you know me. But Bruno announces that he's going to be the ref in the main event, the Thunderdome match. And he says it's the most difficult thing he'll ever do. And he's going to make sure Ole Anderson and Gary Hart don't interfere. And he's there to declare a winner, and it will be a fight to the very end. Because, yeah, that's how wrestling works, bro.
Yeah, thank you, Bruno. Thank you. Thank you.
But that's about it now.
Not much of a promo guy, Bruno Sammartino.
No. Well, take us into the next giant match we've got.
Yes, indeed. It is a 6-man tag team match. The Midnight Express and Steve Williams with their manager Jim Cornette versus the Samoan SWAT team and the Samoan Savage with their manager Sir Oliver Humperdinck. Now, we saw all of these guys last at Great American Bash 1989 except for the Samoan Savage, who we last saw on WrestleMania 4 as Tama. How about that? Now he's made the jump on over. All these guys really in their mid-20s, except for Stan Lane, who's 36, but still, he looks young and he's still getting the chicks back then. But apparently not Lauren Boebert's mother. We got to remember that.
We got to remember that. So hold up, timeout. Where is Paul Heyman? Was he not the manager for the Samoan SWAT? Because we have Oliver Humperdinck, and I was like, is it because it's Halloween? He kind of looks like a leprechaun. Like, where's Paul?
You know, I just realized that when you said that, we didn't see Paul at all on this show. So I'm thinking he's still with the company because I don't think he leaves the company till the early 90s.
Are you sure he didn't get fired?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Yeah, he got replaced, but I don't know. I think it's lame that they rebranded Tama into the Samoan Savage. I mean, it's fine. I get it. He came over, but I think it's even more lame that they're calling Oliver Humperdinck the Big Kahuna. Like, what? There's nothing about that man that says Big Kahuna.
I would love to see Oliver Humperdinck on a surfboard calling himself the Big
Yes.
Kahuna. That'd be great.
Doing the whole finger wagging, the pinky and the thumb. It's just silly,
Yeah.
but I like how Jim Cornette just made himself the ring announcer for this match. That was funny.
Oh yeah, yeah. And he calls Stan Lane the man that's wrecked more homes than Hurricane Hugo. I love it.
Boom, boom.
Love it.
Well, when all the Samoans come out, that fire twirling was rather impressive. You know, that's like Cirque du Soleil stuff, like mixed with wrestling. Like, why don't they teach the bloodline this? Why didn't they share their skills?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. When they came out, I thought it was just they had hired some fire dancers to come out there for their entrance, and then the lights come up. I'm like, oh God, that was actually them doing that. Like, that's insane. Question: how did humans realize that they could do the whole fire eating, fire breathing thing? Like, were they just like standing there around a fire? They're like, you lick it. No, you lick it. And then somebody finally did. Like the idiot Samoan came up there, like, I'll lick it. And then there it went.
That's a really good question because I mean, I don't know who thought that was ever smart to do,
Yeah.
but it is impressive. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I couldn't do. I'd be too afraid to try it.
Oh yeah. Well, getting into this match here, my God, so much posing and like pre-match shenanigans. It's like house show level fooling around before the match. It didn't work for me.
It really didn't work for me. It really made my attention not focus.
Yeah. Yeah, because like there was no point to it. Like I could see what they were going for, but it was like, guys, just do the match. The last one really kind of sucked and we need something.
Yeah, well, this one doesn't get a whole lot better. The ref should just peace on out of here because that man has no control over these 8 people, especially outside the ring when they're all like around the ring on the floor. I was like, what is your point in life? Like, what is the point of you? Because you can't do anything here. But I did realize, just listening to commentary, we're only 2 matches in. Jesse Ventura has spoiled me because I feel like I need humorous commentary now. Otherwise, it just kind of seems blah.
Yeah, yeah. And then once Jesse leaves and he's replaced by Bobby Heenan, we get even more of it. So it's definitely a completely different vibe. And we've talked about the differences in commentary between the two companies before. Maybe if Jesse were here, he could explain why there are tables outside of the ring upside down on the floor.
Well, I mean, it would be like way more. Can you imagine? Like, it would be way more impressive. Can you imagine a table spot where you fall on the leg, like the legs sticking straight up, and that's how you fall on the table? That's impressive.
That would be, in fact, if Darby Allin is listening,
Yep.
I'm sure we are going to see that within the next week or so.
Don't give him ideas. He has to climb Mount Everest.
Yeah, that's not happening.
No, but I will say Stan Lane and Lex Luger, they are the same person. You can't convince me they're not. I think I've said that before. They are the same freaking person.
They do look insanely alike. It's crazy. Now,
Yeah.
at some point here, Jim Ross refers to somebody having gotten 108 stitches. And that's a lot. Oddly enough, that's also how many stitches Dusty Rhodes got when he birthed Cody Rhodes versus C-section.
Is that weird quote birthmark he has on his stomach?
Yeah,
That's actually where he
108
birthed?
stitches right there. And then they just yanked Cody right out of there. And Dustin actually left his drink in there. So they reached in there and got Dustin's, glass of water out of there too.
Was his muffler in there? Oh, first muffler of 2025. Wham.
That's where he stores them. That he pulls out another one. It's kind of like those action figures where you could keep the sword in their stomach or whatever until you needed it.
I was gonna say more like he's just a kangaroo. He's got a pouch. He
Yeah.
keeps his baby in there, whatever he needs to put in there.
Exactly.
Oh, that's funny. Well, did you hear Jim Cornette? He was calling for the Red Rooster. He did the noise. He did the I was so confused. I was like, which promotion am I watching right now?
So far, that would have made this match and this show better. But anyway.
It's true. Well, Oliver, he's freaking terrifying because they show him at one point and he's got his eyes just like bugging out of his head. And you remember like in the early 2000s, that was like a cultural phenomenon. There's like 0.05% of people that can bug their eyes out of their head. And I think
Yeah.
he's one of them. I knew one guy who could do it. He is now in prison, but he could
Oh,
do it and it was freaky. And so,
wow.
yeah,
What is he in prison because he could do that? Is it actually illegal?
I mean, maybe he actually turned himself in because he was diddling a child.
Okay, well, let's talk about this match here. Great match. I'm telling you, match of the night. Favorite pay per view we've done so
Well,
far.
the biggest pop was when Cornette took out Humperdinck. Like again, Cornette is the star of this match.
I'm telling you, Cornette knew how to work a crowd. He
Yeah.
knew, just like Heyman, he knew what they wanted to see, and he did it.
Definitely.
Unfortunately, Stan Lane accidentally knocks Cornette off the apron. The Samoans get the quick pin, and they win the match in just over 18 minutes. What'd you think about this one?
It was fine. Jim Cornette was the most entertaining part, and really the whole time I was just like, "Where the hell is Paul Heyman? He should be here."
Yeah, no, I feel you. Well, we go backstage with Gordon Soley, and he is with Gary Hart and Terry Funk. And did you ever notice how Great Muta is never in these interviews? Like, even when he's got a manager to speak for him, he's never there. Like, I almost wonder if he pulls the old thing where he's like, oops, I messed up my face paint again. Guess you guys have to go out there without me. That's the only thing I can figure out.
The only thing I can think of is he's not actually signed with WCW. And so he's like, no, I get paid for my match and that's it.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Well, for some damn reason, these guys are standing in front of a net and not like
Who's a net?
Funicello. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Like a fishing net. But I really hoped it would fall on them and then raise them up like in the old cartoons, right? Or like one of the Ninja Turtles movies.
Yeah.
But, nah, it didn't happen. They're all here hyping the Thunderdome, which is most decidedly a mistake. So let's go to the next match.
Oh, Justin, this doesn't get much better. And I know we're being real harsh on this show, but y'all, you got to watch it. We're trying to make it entertaining.
It's rough. I broke it up into 2 watching segments, and I should not have done that.
Well, let me just tell you about this hot new match with these new guys. The Cuban Assassin, because he, went on to do so much, and he has a match against Tommy Rich. This is just a regular old singles match, nothing on the line, because we don't know who these men are. So let's talk about him a little bit. The Cuban Assassin, he was born July 27th, 1960. So he's only 64 years old here today. But on this pay-per-view, he was 29. Now, the final pay-per-view we will see him wrestle on is WCW World War III in 1995. So I'm guessing he's going to stick around a little bit. Maybe not. Maybe he'll disappear. Then we'll see him randomly in about 6 years.
I think that's more like it. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. His real name is David Canal. I mean, maybe if you want to get fancy with it, Canal. Either one. He wrestled for at least a little bit everywhere in the US, WCW, WWF, World Class, you name it. But he was most well known in Puerto Rico, where he was a longtime wrestler and served various backstage roles. Now, Mr. Tommy Rich, he was born July 26, 1956, meaning he's 68 years old today, but he was 33 on this pay-per-view. And sorry, Tommy, you're not sticking around long, because the last time we're going to see you is on WCW Starrcade 1991. Now, his real name is Thomas Richardson. He didn't get too creative with the Tommy Rich thing, but he was trained by Jerry Jarrett, the legendary promoter and father of Jeff Jarrett. Man, we're talking so much Jeff Jarrett today.
And he's totally not retiring, by the way, if you missed that at the top of the show.
He is totally. I thought they were going to announce that he's like going to be the booker of ROH or something cool like that.
I would take that. That would actually, he'd probably do a pretty good job, honestly.
I know. But anyway, back to Tommy Rich. After leaving WCW, he had a run in ECW before wrestling on the Indies, where he still has the occasional match to this day. But I can't see a lot of people like being like, "Oh God, that's Tommy Rich,"
Yeah. It was kind of. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
Later on down the line in the history of WCW, it's fine.
Well, right off the bat, your wife is like half Cuban. Like, is she the Cuban assassin? Because no, for real, her family is like so freaking fancy and like so suave. Like, I think they're the Cuban mafia for real.
No, I disagree. I think that if she is the Cuban assassin and she's been keeping the fact from me that today she is in her 60s, I have bigger things to worry about.
Nah, she's not in her 60s because she's my age, and we
That we
bond over the
know
fact.
of.
That's true. But we do bond over
Mhm.
the fact that we have boomer husbands, aka husbands that are like 8 or 9 years older than us, and we have to teach them technology.
Whatever. Get off me.
Who does all the editing? What? Anyway, the
Ugh.
cute the Cuban assassin's gear is killing my soul. Ooh, because he's got like army green camo pants on. That's cool. But then he's got like these bright Crayola green boots. Like, why didn't he just go with black boots? That was awful.
You know, the fashion sense in Cuba at the time, especially for assassins, just way off the mark. I've always said that.
Apparently.
Yeah. Well, here's my question. So his name is the Cuban Assassin. So is he an assassin that's Cuban, or is he the assassin of Cubans, the Cuban assassin, or the Cuban assassin?
Oh man, that's hard to say because then he went over. If he was a big deal in Puerto Rico, I don't know. Like, which way does
Yeah.
that go? How is their
Like,
relationship with Cuba? I don't know.
I'm telling you that we got to figure these things. This is a history podcast, everybody.
It really is. Well, let's talk about a few other things like, okay, boxing, baseball in Cuba, country music. These are all random things that they were talking about on commentary during this match because it was that exciting. Like, even the clapper is completely still and silent during this match.
Again, not a lot to this. Like, at least that 6-man, like, you had some fun. The crowd likes the Midnight Express. They like Cornette and all that, but whew, boy, we are not on a good roll here. And Tommy Rich, he's like a poor man's Ric Flair, which in some ways was kind of the point that they kind of capitalized on here and there over the years. But like, if you do an Instacart order and instead of delivering Gatorade, they bring you like Diet Powerade Light Zero,
Oh, ew.
that's Tommy Rich.
Aw, I feel bad for him now because that stuff is awful. I hate when they give me zero. I'm like, no, I need the full sugar for the effect. I actually was told one time by, I don't even know who told me this, but that it's pointless. Like Gatorade Zero, Powerade Zero, all of the sugar-free ones are pointless because the sugar is needed to take the electrolytes to your blood or your body or whatever. So it makes it pointless. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I wish that the electrolytes would be taken to Tommy Rich so he'd have the energy to end this match quickly.
well, I assumed, don't know why, I assumed everyone would cheer for Tommy Rich and like boo the Cuban assassin because, oh, he's foreign, but they boo Tommy. So I don't even know what's happening.
I think because they see him as a poor man's Ric Flair. That's got to be it, you know. But the problem is nobody in the crowd is looking at the ring during this match. Like the ones who do happen to kind of casually glance at the ring look like they huffed spray paint in the parking lot. Like they just look, just like nothing's happening behind those eyes. Finally, Tommy Rich, he hits the Lou Thez press for the pin. Crowd reacts like they've won a case of new Coke, and that's it.
Yeah, Tommy Rich, he wins that match in 8 minutes and 26 seconds. Justin, I would ask you how you felt about it, but it's pretty clear.
Yeah, we can just keep rolling right along.
We can just keep rolling right along all the way backstage with Gordon Sully and the Freebirds. And they pretty much just say what all wrestlers say before their match, that they're the best, they're going to win. However, they do mention that there are so many women in so little time. Like, ew. Like, I'm like, why do you assume you could get these women? But anyway, then they say the dynamic dudes are cool and all, but they're going to find out why they are called Bad Street. I didn't even know the Freebirds were called Bad Street until that moment.
Yeah.
Hayes says that they are what mama and daddy warned everyone about.
They also look like PE teachers from the late 80s.
That's like half the wrestlers on this, but you know,
The big teased up hair. Like,
exactly. All right, we got another tag team match though. This one at least has stakes.
But yeah, this one's for the NWA World Tag Team Championship. The Dynamic Dudes versus the Fabulous Freebirds, who are the champions. Saw all these guys at Great American Bash 1989. And here's the weird thing. The Dynamic Dudes are managed by Jim Cornette,
Yeah, what?
Oh, I don't like it, but he's gonna do the best he can with it. He does a little ring introduction for them as well, and God bless Jim Cornette.
Yes. Well, let's get on into that match. The dynamic dudes just straight up, they look like Billy Gunn in 2024 Billy Gunn as Daddy
Yeah,
Ass. Like they don't look young. They look like 40-year-old men dressed as 11-year-olds with skateboards.
and skateboards that they never ride. Like they never get. There was a pay per view where the entrance was a ramp. It's the perfect place to prove it, and you didn't ride. You came out with frisbees. Right? And on this show, they pull a kid out of the crowd and they put a hat on him, and then just put him back in the crowd. Like, what was that? Why is Jim Cornette out here with them? I'm disconcerted. I'm discombobulated. I'm dis.
Well, did they take the hat back the way they took the frisbee back last time? Didn't even
They
let him keep it?
couldn't. They couldn't because the hat is attached.
Oh, he got me. I finally told mom that story. And then I was like, you have to send him a memoji of you saying that. And she thought it was so dang funny. Well, I was kind of surprised. The Fabulous Freebirds got pyro. That was kind of
Yeah.
interesting. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Well, and Jim Ross says that Michael Hayes was the first wrestler to ever use entrance music. Michael Hayes has claimed that as well. While some of them did before Michael Hayes, like Gorgeous George did, I know that way back. Hayes was probably the first to do it on a wide scale, and he might actually be talking about using like rock music to do it.
I mean, I don't know. That's hard to believe, but if Jim Ross says it, maybe it's true.
Yeah, I mean, somebody had to be the first, right? So maybe it is him.
Maybe, but he is certainly not the first to moonwalk. It was Michael Jackson, and Michael Hayes should probably not moonwalk because it was ugly. Woof.
Yeah. Well, he's got all that chest hair weighing him down. It makes it hard to.
Very true. Well, in this match, it was about the time I realized JR says that every wrestler that comes out, he's like, they started their careers when they were teenagers. So I'm thinking like maybe he should just stop saying that and just comment if they didn't start as teenagers.
Like, here's Terry Funk. He started when he was 42. Not quite the veteran he looks like. But, it's funny because the dynamic dudes are supposed to be the cool ones in this match. The crowd gets behind because they're cool. I'd argue that the Freebirds are a lot cooler.
Oh, yeah.
And Jim Ross says that the dynamic dudes were finishing their college degrees while the Freebirds graduated from the School of Hard Knocks. So, yeah, you just told us that the dynamic dudes are the nerds.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure they were even the nerds in school because everyone's like, why are these grown men dressed like 11-year-olds?
Yes, and why do they carry a skateboard around campus and don't ever ride it?
Right? Like at least Darby Allin will ride that thing. And like even if you just go down the ramp and you look real stupid like you have a stick up your butt and you're real still, you gotta ride the dang skateboard. You just
Exactly, Johnny Ace, John Laurinaitis. Get the stick out of your ass, John Laurinaitis.
I'm gonna just clip that, put it on Twitter, and tag him. Well, the dynamic dudes, not only do they look like 11-year-olds, they look like they're wearing like construction wear or like they're police directing traffic because it's the neon orange and the yellow. Like, hey, maybe they're sick of the shenanigans with the ref and they want to make sure the ref sees them. I don't know.
It could be. They need those like reflective vests and everything. Here's what made me happy about this match, though: 2 separate air horns.
How do you know it was 2 separate ones?
Because I could hear one go, "Meh," and another one go, "Eh," like that. It was 2.
Maybe it was just dying, but I will appreciate that 2 different people brought in their air horns, and I bet one of them like they were mad at each other, like, no, I was gonna be the air horn guy. Dang it!
I so wanted them to fire one off during like a top row move or something when somebody gets lifted up, so it sounds like one of the guys farted themselves when they were picking up something heavy.
I'm telling you, I'm going to All In. I kind of want to do it, like just to have my moment on TV because I didn't get enough of those or anything. But
And then when Marco Stunt returns, you can just get one of those slide whistles. Whoop!
I thought you were gonna say I could just get a tube and go wah, 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 or whatever that freaking instrument is. But anyway, random promo. from JR and Bob about education because they tell us, get that education before you do anything. These wrestlers got theirs and they have something to fall back on. I'm like, this was weird. Was this like a Turner thing? Like being like, promote education to the kids?
Yeah, apparently Johnny Ace majored in business marketing, according to Jim Ross. Hey, Johnny Ace, John Laurinaitis, how do you market taking a shit on an intern's head? Just for the curious crowd.
Oh, my face.
John Laurinaitis.
He's calling you out, buddy. This is so going on Twitter. I don't even know where to go from that. I am lost. I don't know what to say to that. Well, the dynamic dudes do a double leapfrog and a double drop kick. And instead of like this huge applause, the audience just starts chanting for the Freebirds. And Bob tries to kind of cover it up by saying, Hayes must have some brothers in the crowd. Like that was funny and kind of lame. But I'm confused at who these faces are, Justin, because the dynamic dudes are getting booed and you suck chants. Like, why did I assume the crowd should like them?
I think that was the intent, but I mean, people can see through that. You know, it's like for years people hated Cena because he was just like this good guy who always won and was forced down our throats. Same thing with Roman Reigns. It's why people got tired of Hogan back in the day. It's just sometimes people just aren't going to believe it.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe there was a time traveler and they came back and said, hey, in like the 2010s or whatever, John Laurinaitis, he's going to be doing all this crap. So we need to boo him.
Yeah, John Laurinaitis.
Yeah. Well, the Fabulous Freebirds do win the match and retain their championship in 11 minutes and 28 seconds. Did you like that match a little bit more?
Let's move on.
Okay.
Backstage with Chris Cruz and the Steiner brothers, they're talking about how they've never seen their opponents tonight, so they don't know what to prepare for. Do you ever notice that Braun Breaker has that same tiny squeak to his voice that the Steiner brothers have? Like, I can't even replicate it, but it's like this. It's like he has a man voice, but there's like this tiny, teeny little squeak in the bottom of it that is, it's kind of cute. It's kind of
It is
adorable
kind of cute. It is.
Yeah. But anyway, Rick says that he won't be distracted by woman on the outside, the former obsessed fan, Robin Green, and that he's going to take her and choke her or something. We should move on.
Oh, yep. Well, we've got the tag team match with Doom, and they are with woman versus the Steiner brothers. Now, let's talk about Doom a little bit because we know them, but we don't know them. Okay. So Doom number one is Ron Simmons, previously seen on the Great American Bash in the double ring battle royale. So like he didn't really get a bio because we don't do that. But let's talk about him a little bit, Mr. Ron Simmons. He was born May 15th, 1958, and he is still alive today at the ripe old age of 66. But he's only 31 on this pay-per-view, the average age of the wrestlers on this pay-per-view. And goodness, the last pay-per-view we're going to see him on is WWE Survivor Series 2006. So
yeah,
he's around for a while, man. Obviously, his real name is Ronald Simmons, but have you ever met a wrestler named Ronald? No.
Not that I can think of.
Nah, so pretty cool. He was an all-American football player in college and went on to play for the NFL, the CFL, and the USFL, which I'm like, what the hell is the USFL?
Isn't that the one that The Rock started? No, that's something else. Never mind.
Well, that one's pretty dead in the water too.
Yeah.
They talk about the XFL, and I'm like, I feel like the XFL is full of players who just like made everyone mad in the NFL. So
pretty much.
Yeah. Well, and then Doom number two, he last wrestled on WCW Wrestle War 1989 as Butch Reed. So that's pretty easy. He is rocking the age of 35 on this pay-per-view. And then, of course, we've got Rick and Scott Steiner. They're close to the same age, 28 and 27. I'm like, how are y'all not twins? And they were both on the Great American Bash in 89.
You know, I have one personal story about Ron Simmons.
Tell it.
I was at a show that I wasn't going to be able to referee on, but I said that I'd go and help set up the ring and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I helped set up the ring, and there was like quite a few big names on this show: Billy Gunn, Gangrel, and Ron Simmons. And so I'm sitting there, and I've gotten done setting up the ring, and I'm just sitting there watching the guys kind of work on some moves in the ring. And I look over by the curtain. and sitting there in a folding chair, just watching the young guys train, Ron Simmons. Just sitting there watching, enjoying what he was seeing. That's also where I met Jay Lethal. So that was pretty cool too.
Oh, cool. Did you talk to Ron Simmons?
I didn't. He was like way up there by the entrance and I was down in the ring. And so no, but
well, that's
Jay
cool.
Lethal is super nice.
Oh, I can tell that. Anytime he tries to do heel stuff, I'm like, your face is so friendly. Your face is so friendly. Well, let's talk about this woman with them. I love that her name is Just Woman because that is what everybody calls our mom. And she even kind of looks like our mom, especially like back in the 80s, 90s. I didn't notice that, but our sister pointed that out when I texted the group and I was like, hey, this woman's named Woman and she kind of looks like you. However, what I didn't realize, I was like, man, she looks familiar. Woman is Nancy Sullivan, who was married to Kevin Sullivan, but then got divorced later on and ended up marrying Chris Benoit and was tragically murdered. So rest in peace, woman. We love you. But I gotta ask, Doom equals retribution? Those masks?
Yeah. They ended up being kind of cool, I think, but this was weird.
Yeah, well, the Steiners are freaking dominating in the beginning. The Steiners should win this, right? Right?
That surprised me. Like, since the Steiners didn't know what to prepare for, to me, it seems like they should be getting killed in the first few minutes until they can like get their bearings and kind of have a few minutes to figure these guys out, right? Or until Rick's hand starts telling him what to do. Either one, you know.
Well, I still think the college wrestler gimmick is weird. Like the whole wearing Michigan, it's weird. I think it's just because they look so much older to me and it looks, I don't know. I got thoughts on it.
It's because Uncle Rico was in the crowd. So they were like thinking back to their old days, you know. That's what it was. My friends, is called a callback. Yeah. Yes. Jim Ross says, since we don't know who these guys are, we'll call them Doom number 1 and Doom number 2, which is somehow less offensive than when Vince McMahon referred to Jumping Bomb Angel number 1 and Jumping Bomb Angel number 2.
Because at least Doom had masks on. Jumping Bomb Angel number 1 and number 2, it was just, he can't tell the difference between two Asian women. That's all it was.
Oh, Vince shitting on a girl. Oh, wait, we already did. Okay, go on.
Boom. Oh, gosh. Well, okay. They're talking about the wrestling hotline again. So I had to do my research. I could not handle this any longer, not knowing. So upon looking on Reddit, I learned that this hotline was $1 to $2 a minute. Can you imagine those kids that called in, stayed on there for like 2 hours, and then their parents got the phone bill?
There was definitely a reason why on those commercials for it, they always said, kids, get your parents' permission, because any parent would be like, hell no, are you crazy?
Yeah, so just wait till you hear what was on this wrestling hotline. So during the show, you could call into the wrestling hotline and get a play-by-play like commentary. And then if you called after the show, you could get the play-by-play and the match results. And like there were apparently some free hotlines back in the day, but it was just like a monotone, like not enthused voice reading wrestling articles that had already been published in wrestling magazines. So I just don't understand why you would call and pay this much money per minute when you could just order the pay-per-view.
That's a great question. I remember calling the WWF one back in the day, and they had so many tactics to keep you on the line that it was insane.
Did you ask mom? We were poor. Like, did you ask her?
It was not on our home phone. It was on another phone.
What phone?
I'm not sure if the statute of limitations has passed. So it was not on our home phone.
Justin, you have to tell me this now. I gotta know. Was it Percy, our grandpa?
No.
Was it Granny?
No.
Who was it?
It was at a business.
No, you didn't. What business was it?
I'm not saying.
Text me. I have to know this.
Hang on. I'm going to send you a text right now.
Okay. I want to know.
I've literally never told anybody this, okay?
What the hell? How have you waited this long?
I sent you a text. And apparently I racked up $100 worth of phone bills.
How do you know?
Because they asked if anybody did it, and I didn't say shit.
I am so telling our entire family this. No, okay. I will say this is a local business here, local to Midland, Texas, so it probably won't mean anything to anyone listening, but this is the funniest thing I've ever heard in 2025, and I'm not just saying that because it's only been a day. That is fantastic.
Okay, moving on.
That is fantastic. Well, Rick Steiner got a new tattoo, and it's of a bulldog. And JR asked him, like, said that he asked him, like, why didn't you get a Wolverine? You know, with the whole Michigan thing. And I guess Rick just said, I wanted a bulldog. Random.
Sure, why not?
If you had to get a tattoo today, what would you get and where?
I would probably get a tattoo of it would be like a whole sentence on my nipple.
What? How?
And it just says number 1 and number 2.
Are you Doom? Are you Russian Assassin? Are you what?
Well, no, that's just above them. Underneath them, it would say regular, and then the other one would say chocolate.
That's nasty. That's nasty. Our friend Jeff.
What would you get?
Well, our friend Jeff has a tattoo of a bull, and his nipple is the nose, and it's pierced. So
That's true.
But what would I get? I don't know. I in a different world, a different lifetime, I would have like full sleeves of different horror movie characters. But I'm past that point in my life to start that. So I don't know. Maybe I'd get like an orca because I like orcas. I don't know. I haven't thought about it.
That's I like my nipple tattoos. I think I need to leave it go do that.
I got nipples, Greg. Can you milk me? That's all I think about is the parents.
Well, Scott Steiner, they say here, was going to be a teacher at one point. Like, can you imagine Scott Steiner being your teacher? And of course, he'd teach Steiner math. Like, that's just a foregone conclusion.
He don't walk in with that metal thing on his head.
Well, and it's so weird because Rick Steiner was a longtime member of the school board somewhere there in Georgia. So it's kind of weird how that worked out.
What the hell? Man, I swear, I get more and more shocked when I hear about these things. But Butch Reed came in at one point hitting a running clothesline on Rick. Holy crap. Like, Rick did a complete 360. It might have been like a 380 or a 400. And like, that's tough when you're short and stout. Like, trust me, I know.
Yeah, do it right now. Just move your camera.
Yeah, flip the camera around, not me.
Right. Scott Steiner was also thrown over the top rope, but the referee was distracted by Rick. So even though we're always reminded about this stupid rule of being disqualified for throwing somebody over the top rope, we've never actually seen it happen. Can we just stop with this, please?
Please, 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 can we? But okay, update on the clapper.
Clap on, clap off.
So during this match, he's talking to a girl, like she's like a few chairs away. I think she's like behind him and over like 2 chairs, but he's like very animated and like gesturing with his hands. And like, I really wonder what she was thinking because her face tells me that she had already said, "Oh, that's so crazy," about 8 times.
I see these TikToks of like the women post about their boyfriend taking them to a wrestling show. And I'm like, oh boy, I hope my wife never feels like that. Because they look absolutely miserable.
Well, and it's funny because I always tell Mark, I'm like, in real life, like in everyday life, I'm like a 5, but at a wrestling show, I'm a 10 because I'm not like weird, completely ugly, and I'm at a wrestling show and there's not many females. So I feel like you get points on your attractiveness if you're at a wrestling show.
I think so. Also, your body odor matters as well.
Or my lack thereof. They're like, "Oh man, she smells good." Well, originally in my notes, I had put, did Doom take down the pacing of this match? Because I feel like they slowed it down. There were a lot of holds on the ground. And now I will answer my own question. Yes, this match is slow as molasses, dried up molasses.
Yeah, I feel like this should have just been domination all the way through. The finish comes when Woman slides something into one of the Doom's mask, and then he headbutts Rick Steiner, and Rick goes down for the pin. But are we to ignore that the hard object in Doom's mask would hurt his forehead just as bad as it hurt Rick's?
I don't know, man. It's kind of like the headbutt. You know, they always headbutt. And they're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "I know that hurt you. I know that hurt you." But Doom wins that match in 15 minutes and 26 seconds. Justin, I don't think this match needed to be this long, especially with how slow Doom was moving at this point in history. But what
Yeah.
did you think?
Yeah, it just wasn't it to me. It didn't tell the most interesting story, which was, hey, these new guys, Doom, who you've never seen before, are going to kill people.
Yeah, I see. I didn't even know that's what they were supposed to be or what they were supposed to do because I didn't pick that up at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
Uh,
know.
I don't know. Gordon Sully has Lex Luger backstage, and Lex says that this match with Flying Brian is the real deal, and it's all on the line. Money, reputation, for all the marbles. And he says that he is the champion of the 90s. But wait, like we haven't even entered the 90s yet. Lex, what do you know? Tell me what you know. But he says he's going to stay the champion as long as he wants to.
Yeah, Luger's also perfecting his interview tick, point and drag. Point your finger at the screen, drag it to the other side of the screen. It was like he was imagining the iPad early on. Point and drag it over.
Well, we have established he knows the future if he's the champion of the 90s. So he saw
See?
John Laurinaitis, he saw it all coming, and he saw the iPad. He saw Steve Jobs coming up with it all. So
Yep. Yep. Lex Luger, he's a genius. Nobody's ever said that sentence. Nobody has said those words in that order.
Oh, poor Lex.
Let's get on to the next match. It's a singles match for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship. Flying Brian is the challenger against Lex Luger, the champion. Saw both these guys at Great American Bash 89. Flying Brian here, just 27 years old. And Lex Luger is 31. And here we go, another title match.
Yeah, so Flying Brian, he comes down with like a bunch of cheerleaders, and honestly, it looks like an episode of Saved by the Bell. You know when like Kelly and Lisa and all them would have their pom poms and they just come down. But I had a thought. I was like, are cheerleaders not cool anymore? Because like I feel like we don't see them near as much as we saw them in like the '90s and early 2000s.
Well, these cheerleaders weren't. Like, it looked like the cheerleaders' outfits were stolen by the color guard. Like, what were these cheerleaders? Come on.
That reminds me of the episode of Family Guy where Meg doesn't make cheerleaders, so she goes to the flag girls and she thinks it's like the same thing.
Yeah.
And they're making fun of her. Oh, poor color guard. Well, okay. My question has finally been answered. I think I asked you several episodes ago, like who did it first. We got the wet hair look from Lex. He is the first because he looked so different to me in this match, and I realized he didn't have his usual fluffy mullet. It was all wet, and I'm like, yes, you started it. But speaking of hair, Lex and Flying Brian look so similar. Like they look like the before and after of like a perm.
They also look like a before and after for steroids, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh, speculation, Justin.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Well, they cut to the cheerleaders back over in the crowd, and they're like doing their thing. They're doing some little dance, and then this little turd, this little young like teenage boy, jumps right in front of the cheerleaders, right in the camera shot with a sign, and he's excited, waving his sign. And they cut away after about 1 second, like, "Dang it, that kid ruined our shot."
Breaking news: that kid, Tony Khan, always trying to get us to ignore the women. It was him.
Oh, bam. Fighting words, Justin.
I mean, they just had their first women's match that went over 20 minutes in company history. It's a fair joke.
I mean, but it was Mercedes and Chris Statlander. I really wonder how many. I mean, obviously there are some of them, but I wonder how many of the women are capable of a 20-minute match in AEW.
We'll never know.
Maybe we'll know a little bit more. Because at least when it was Mercedes and it was going to be Chris Statlander, I was like, this is going to be good. Because I feel like Mercedes has to, what's the word? Just kind of like roll back her skill set a little bit with some of the women. And I knew like with Chris Statlander, she'd be good, you know? But anyway, that's back to current wrestling. I'm in a time machine. I can't talk about that.
Yeah, you're like Lex Luger. You can predict the future, apparently.
Exactly. Well, when referring to Lex, JR, I had to put this in quotes because I was like, what the hell is he talking about? He says, he doesn't react well to negativisms from the fans. Negativisms.
Can we, like, we have gorilla-isms? Can we add that to Jim Ross-isms?
Apparently, I was like,
Negativisms.
would that be negative criticism? But
I don't know.
whatever.
JR says that Luger's face tells the whole story. Then they zoom in on Luger's face. And if the story was, I wonder if I recorded Unsolved Mysteries tonight, then his face absolutely tells the story.
His face really doesn't tell much. You're not wrong. But okay, I know we loved Unsolved Mysteries. My favorite summertime memories are watching Unsolved Mysteries with you and Teletubbies and then going to the library and looking in the paranormal section. So
Yes.
my question is, do you have like a specific episode of Unsolved Mysteries that you remember or that you really liked?
There was one that scared the absolute hell out of me when I was a kid. And it was about people who saw a UFO and then got abducted.
Ooh.
And it scared me just so bad that I remember I didn't even want to go to bed that night.
Wow. I feel like I remember that. Mine was actually a story about a house. I don't remember if it was in Midland or just West Texas, but it was a haunted house and they would hear this banging in the middle of the night. And so I really remember that. And then I also remember an episode about a shooting at a bowling alley and they had shot a bunch of kids and stuff too. And when it aired the first time, I feel like they didn't know who the killers were, but when I rewatched that episode 4 or 5 years ago, they had updated it and they had found out who did it or something
Oh,
like
wow.
that. But those are the 2 episodes because I remember I was always scared to go to the bowling alley after that. Man, but anyway, where was I at on this? Oh, update on the clapper. The clapper. Okay, so now he has 2 young kids sitting next to him and he's enthusiastically talking to him. And I think he finally found his match. And I'm thinking the parents were sitting next to him and probably got annoyed. So they were like, hey, trade me, stuck their kids next to him. So, but I mean, if you are the clapper, please reach out. We'd love to interview you. And I mean, I promise I'm not mean. I'm calling you out because you were entertaining me during some of these matches that I needed to be entertained. So good for you.
The only fan who seemed to give a crap about most of this show.
He was like, Cuban Assassin, yes. But hey, also, speaking of me getting distracted during these matches, there is a kiosk in the very back of the arena selling nuts. Nuts! Do you just walk up and order and be like, I would like some almonds and some pecans? Or is it like a candy store where you just scoop whatever kind you want into the bag and weigh it?
That's a fantastic question. I've never seen a nut vendor.
I bet they can't even sell nuts anymore because of nut allergies. I mean, I've said the word nut a lot.
And now you've said the phrase nut a lot. So we should really move on. John Laurinaitis shit on somebody's head. Anyway.
And then he probably nutted after.
Oh!
I'm sorry. That was nasty. That was nasty.
Actually, I think it was Vince doing the shitting, right? I don't know. But then Vince finished shitting and then Johnny Ace nutted after. It all works. It's fine.
No more nuts. If you want a review of this match, everybody, it's a lot of clotheslines, ouch, and Lex fixing his hair. But it was a great match. Really more so for me, for Brian. I feel like Flying Brian was trying to prove something and it was a good showing for him.
Yeah, this match actually, I mean, we've talked about how lame the audience was, but this match picked them up. They were getting huge reactions from the crowd, Flair Luger reactions. They were hot. And oddly, Lex gets the pin, but the crowd cheers. They aren't taking him as a bad guy at this point.
It just doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Lex Luger wins that match, retains his championship in 16 minutes, 48 seconds before we head backstage with Chris Cruz with the Road Warriors and Paul Ellering. And they're standing in front of some sort of tree branch that looks less spooky, Halloween-y, and more like something you'd see in the lobby of a suspicious massage place. And then the lighting is supposed to be eerie and spooky, but that means Paul Ellering is almost completely in darkness behind Hawk. So he looks like somebody left Steve Austin in the dryer for too long. It didn't work. It didn't work. So Hawk and Animal, they yell and have veins bulging out before we go to their match.
Yes, it is a tag team match, and it is the Road Warriors with Paul Ellering, as you said, versus the Skyscrapers with Mr. Theodore Long.
Holla, holla.
Holla, holla. So yeah, we've seen hey, I actually think he might be on Squared Circle Expo. No, I lied. Never mind. He's not. I lied. Sorry. Well, we saw all these guys in this match at Great American Bash 1989, but we've got Road Warrior Animal. We've got Road Warrior Hawk, Dan Spivey, and Sid Vicious. So let's get
Yes,
into the
man.
match.
I'm not sure why the skyscrapers combo of black leather vests and black chaps was supposed to strike fear into the hearts of two guys wearing spiked shoulder pads. But okay.
That was a thing in the 80s, 90s. Like leather meant you were tough.
Yeah, it doesn't translate
It
almost 30
doesn't.
years later. But for the Road Warriors entrance, they're like standing on an elevator built into the stage, kind of like Cody Rhodes used to do in AEW, except this one moves slow, very slow. It made me think of, I was in a show one time called Cats.
Oh, God, I remember this.
And we had this platform where at the end of the show, the big opera singing cat or whatever was supposed to raise up to the sky on this platform. Well, like a couple nights before we opened, the elevator thing it was on broke and we couldn't fix it. So they put like a hand pump, like a jack underneath it. And so for the whole run of this show, which was like 6 weeks or so, this poor woman's having to stand on this thing, singing her ass off while it goes, fa-bump, fa-bump.
It was bad, y'all.
About 25 to 30 times until she got up to the top of the set.
It was so bad. She's even singing the memory. Like, it is her moment. It is the moment everyone looks forward to in Cats. And it was so distracting. And I think it caught on fire one night. Do you remember that? Was that
part of the set did catch on fire one night? Yes. It was a fantastic production.
What a mess. Goodness. I'm thinking this elevator thing they were on, it worked fine, but they didn't realize, we're going to have like 300-pound guys on it.
Yeah, like if there was no crowd noise or no music, you would just hear it going.
You're right. Hey, is Animal's makeup inspired by Batman? Please say yes, because it's like that black and yellow. It was cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Jim Ross says here that the Road Warriors were the first wrestlers to wear face paint. That can't be true, right? Like there had to be, I would think in Japan, there had to be somebody before them.
No, I mean, maybe the first tag team, but usually people say it's the great Kabuki because he like started in the early 70s and he had face paint from the beginning. So maybe he meant tag team. I don't know.
Maybe so.
But they did show someone in the crowd with the Road Warriors mask, and it was terrifying because, like, remember those cheap, like 80s Halloween costumes that came with a mask, but you'd like buy it at Walgreens? Like,
yeah, it had like that thin string of elastic around the back.
Yeah, and like a little rectangular slit for the mouth. Like they had like Barbie. I think you had a Pee Wee Herman one.
I did, yeah.
It's like that, but Road Warrior Hawk.
Merchandise, I guess. I don't know.
It was scary. And then like, so obviously it looks bad. And then JR is like, it looks like a great Muta mask. And I was like, oh, ouch. Dang, JR.
Well, way to sell those things, Jim. All right, good job.
I know. Well, it's wild to me that Sid makes Animal and Hawk look small. Like there was a moment where Animal and Sid were like facing off, having a stare down, and Animal looked freaking tiny.
I know. Well, the height difference would have been more noticeable, but it was humid that night. So the Road Warrior's hair was just frizzy and unmanageable. Yeah, but you're right. Sid could have spit shined Animal's head.
It's true. Wait, I get confused. Who has the mohawk and who has the reverse mohawk? Hawk has the reverse, right?
Hawk has the reverse. Animal has the regular mohawk.
That makes sense then. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was a great match. A lot of the Road Warriors like sizing up the skyscrapers, which it's dumb because they're massive, but I liked it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was fine. I love them grabbing each other's hands and playing mercy like we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. But their heads were so close to each other. And I just had to wonder like what they were talking about. They're like, did you try the chicken carbonara and catering? Shit was fantastic.
He's like, why the hell is that kid clapping at me?
I think Lex Luger forgot to record Unsolved Mysteries. He was talking about it in the dressing room.
And that is a callback. I need to make that like a sound cue.
Callback.
I love that. Everyone that I listen to or watch on YouTube uses that dang sound effect. I need it.
Thanks, Pitbull.
Yes. Okay, this is kind of mean, and maybe I'm wrong, and I feel bad saying it, but I feel like Dan Spivey is to skyscrapers as Marty Jannetty is to rockers. Like, I feel like Sid and Sean just carry so much more star power. Like, am I wrong here, or am I just like biased because I know what comes later?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, especially like in hindsight, right? But I
Mhm.
mean, Sean was just undeniably talented. In fact, when we were at that Undertaker show a few weeks ago, Taker straight up said Sean is the best in ring performer in the history of professional wrestling.
Oh, wow. That's, like,
Um,
huge coming from Undertaker.
exactly, yeah, and Sid, he just had that intensity and that look. Spivey was an intimidating guy. He might have actually been taller than Sid, actually, but there was just things just didn't fall into place, and maybe one decision on a character or a booking or something would have butterfly affected him into a bigger spot these days. Who knows?
I feel like Sid also just had an interesting look. Like, his face,
Mhm.
there's not many people who can be like, "Oh, he looks like Sid Vicious." Like, no, like,
Right.
his look was just interesting. So maybe that was it. But
Yeah.
as this gets more confusing, Teddy Long, like, brought this big key with him, and, like, he came out with it with the skyscrapers to the ring, and, like, I don't know, the skyscrapers use it later in the match. It's like a 12-foot or 12-foot, like a 12-inch key, and I can't tell if, using the key got them disqualified or if Teddy Long entering the ring got them disqualified, but the Road Warriors did win via disqualification in 11 minutes and 39 seconds. What happened?
I think it was because of the key.
Okay.
I don't think just Teddy Long going in there would have done that. So I think it was because they used the key.
Okay, well, after the match, the skyscrapers keep attacking Animal, but like Hawk hits this flying clothesline and then uses the key to knock them, all three of them, out of the ring. And like at this moment, I noticed the paper mache key is very bent. I'm like, really? You couldn't come up with a metal key? But what was this key even supposed to be?
So Teddy Long actually, that's the key that he would use to start the skyscrapers before their match. He
They're
would just
buildings, they're not
they,
vehicles.
but you stick them in there, and then they would hang Sid and Dan Spivey up backstage and just put them in the road cases with all the lighting and all that stuff, and then just stick a key in them, and just there they go.
Justin, I thought you were being serious for half a second. I thought that was like the gimmick, like they vroom vroom, get them
Ne-
started or something.
never make that mistake. Don't ever take me seriously, ever.
Lesson learned. Well, Chris Cruz is backstage with Sting. Guys, I am finally meeting Sting for the first time in Midland, Texas in March. I've got my passes. Who would have thought out of all the places I go, all the wrestling things I go, that's where I'm going to meet him, but I'm so excited, y'all.
You never know. You'll have to ask him. Well, I wonder. Ooh, I wonder if he could show up in Surfer Sting face
I,
paint
I would be
instead.
so happy. I would be
Right?
so happy,
Be
but
on the lookout for his sons. Maybe his sons will be there with him.
oh, I know. And my sister was like, our sister, she was like, is he going to be in makeup? I'm like, what kind of Sting photo op? Like, you get a photo op with this pass? I'm like, what kind of, that would be lame if he was not in makeup. God, our
Right?
sister needs to know more about wrestling.
Come on. She should be our third co-host, actually.
No, she's terrible. And anytime like something super exciting will happen, like when CM Punk came back in AEW, and I'm telling her about it, and she's just like, I don't care. And I'm like, what? That hoe. Well, Chris Cruz is backstage with Sting, Ric Flair, and Ole Anderson. Now, Sting's makeup is looking phenomenal. It is super vibrant and it matches his pants perfectly. But his energy in this interview actually got me hyped up for the main event because, the rest of the show has been kind of meh. But Rick says that they stand for a cause tonight and that there's going to be plenty of havoc, and that cause is ending Terry Funk in the Great Muta. Now, Sting says it's Halloween, there's going to be havoc, and I don't know, they're both going woo, woo, back and forth during this interview. And then Sting just concludes it with, it'll be different, and I love being different.
Well, speaking of different, Sting and Ric Flair look like superstar wrestlers in this interview, while Ole in his suspenders looks like Rick's favorite bartender.
What the hell was that, Justin? What
I
the
don't know.
hell?
If you didn't know who Ole Anderson was, it was like Rick was at the bar. It was like, you want to be on national TV? Let's go. Let's go, pal. And then just drug him to the
Basically,
arena.
I was like, is he in a Halloween costume dressed up as like a little Irish man? Like I was so I'm like, are you Lord Humperdinck's friend? I don't understand.
Well,
You're
let's
not
get
wrong.
into it. The main event of the show. It is a Thunderdome match, which we've not seen before. There are reasons. With special referee Bruno Sammartino. It is Sting and Ric Flair with Ole Anderson versus the J-Tex Corporation with their manager, Gary Hart. The participants in this match, Ric Flair and Sting, and on the other side, the Great Muta and Terry Funk. As we said, Terry Funk, the oldest wrestler on the show at the age of 45 years old. So let's get into it. We should point out a few things about this match, the rules, okay?
Please.
It's a tag team match, but tagging isn't really enforced, okay? Number two, the special guest referee is Bruno Sammartino. And this was kind of a big deal because Bruno, of course, was the champion for the WWF for a decade. Huge history in New York wrestling, Philadelphia wrestling. But he so disliked what Vince McMahon was doing with the WWF in the 80s that he went on talk shows and radio shows basically talking about what a terrible company it was, both on screen and off screen. So him popping over to NWA and WCW here was a really big deal. He enters to be the referee, and I can't tell if the crowd is booing or if they're saying, Bruno. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But number three, the thing you got to remember, the match can't end in pinfall or disqualification. The only way the match ends is when one team's manager, in this case called the designated Terminators, throws the towel in. Also, we have been told earlier in the night that the cage is electrified, but more on that in a moment. So those are the rules. Okay, we have a mystery man, okay?
Yes.
When Great Muta enters with Gary Hart, there is a guy in a suit, also wearing a mask, walking backwards behind Great Muta like he's on the lookout for an attacker. Commentary never says who this person is. And I looked online, I looked on old message boards. I can't figure it out either.
Justin, I was hoping you would know who that was because I was like, who the hell is that guy? And I was laughing.
Clue. There's this message board that's been around for years and years called Kayfabe Memories. I tried looking on there, couldn't find it on there either. I have no idea.
We should post it on our Twitter because someone's going to know. I feel like Xander would know.
Maybe so.
Maybe because he always has fun facts. But hey, you know who's looking great? Freaking Terry Funk. He is looking cut, man.
Dude, he took his shirt off. I was like, damn, Terry, you don't look 46. He looked great. And unlike the skyscrapers, Terry Funk wearing chaps actually makes sense because he's from Texas. I mean, it doesn't make it more attractive, but it does make more sense.
It does make more sense. It doesn't make him look tougher either, but dang, he doesn't need to look tougher with those abs, man. I was like, good. And like, he didn't look like steroid huge. He looked freaking fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he looked great. Flair, interestingly, doesn't enter with a group of women like he has in the past, just with his bartender, Ole Anderson. That's it.
It's like when never mind, that's mean to say.
Okay.
I was going to say, it's like when there's like a guy at a bar and he's hot, but his friend's not that cute. And so you're like, ew, I don't really want to like go talk to him.
I could not tell you how many times I have been in that situation with my good looking friend and he didn't get the girl because of me.
Justin, let's be honest. You and I never hung out in bars because we're not cool enough. Let's just be real. Okay. Am I wrong? Or is the Thunderdome also the name of the weird COVID arena with all the screens of people watching remotely?
That is yes, it is the same name. And I can guarantee you, Vince McMahon had no idea that the Thunderdome was a match in early WCW, nor did Kevin Dunn.
I mean, first of all, that Thunderdome, the whole COVID, all of 2020 going into 2021, that's just like such a blur now. And I'm like, we did the weirdest crap. Like there's a season of RuPaul's Drag Race and they did the entire finale via Zoom. And it was so disappointing.
But yeah, my wife and I were watching Jeopardy in the hotel room the other night. And the three places where the three contestants stand are like three separate podiums. Remember, for years before that, all those podiums were smashed together. Yeah. And then in COVID, they separated them. and it's just stayed that way. The good thing is on Wheel of Fortune, they don't have to grab that condom looking thing to spin the wheel anymore. So that's nice.
Ayo, ayo. I'm surprised they didn't just put plexiglass in between
Right.
the three podiums, but
Right.
okay, I just had to know. But so I know you're not gonna like it, but I think the twigs and like the spider webs and the
Ugh.
Halloween decor on the cage, I think it's amazing. And like I'm not sure they thought that went through because people actually need to be able to see through the cage to see the match, and there's webs everywhere. But I liked it
Yeah.
because I liked it. Okay.
It looks like a Spirit Halloween store threw up all over the cage.
Yeah, and that's what my house looks like, Justin.
Whatever.
I mean, I will say I deeply appreciated that they kept the cage like up in the ceiling, all concealed, because those horrible scaffolding shows where the scaffolding's just out the entire time, it's distracting. And honestly, at this point in time, I'm surprised we didn't have all cage matches so that it could be like, I'm surprised they had the thinking to think, oh, we should probably like leave this in the ceiling and bring it down just for that match.
Right. Because remember those early ones that we would watch, they had to take a break and fill the time while the crew came in and built the cage around the ring. We get like all these long ass interviews and everything and recaps. So they're moving forward. That's good.
They are moving forward. Well, JR says there's a gap of, quote, about 5 feet between the ring and the cage. And like, why? But I did spot a cameraman standing on the ring apron. So maybe they needed so much space because the cameras were that large. Because, before I talked about, I was like, do they film through the little openings in the fence? And we're like, yeah, I think they do. But they were actually in the cage this time.
Yeah. And you can even see that today if you watch Hell in a Cell on WWE. They'll stick a camera guy in there just for that. At least one camera guy, sometimes maybe even two.
But now the cage is so much, there's not that 5 foot gap, probably because cameras are smaller.
Right.
But yeah, well, as you said, the cage is electrified and it's even catching on fire. But it's like, I guess it's only electric at the top because, like, that's how metal works, right? Like, conducting electricity. But just avoid the top. You can touch the rest of the cage, but don't touch the top.
Okay. Yeah. We got to go into this. This was stupid. This was dumb. This was ridiculous. Okay. When they were lowering the cage over the ring, some pyro went off at the top of it, just some sparkly pyro, right? But one of the burlap sacks decorating the cage caught fire. So we can see a production assistant and referee Tommy Young outside of the cage trying to put the fire out with their hands, like, oh, hachi machi, oh, ah, ah. That's when the Great Muta climbs the cage, spews his green mist, which I'm sure he was supposed to use later in the match, and the fire goes out immediately. Awesome. And I will never again question the power of the green mist or Great Muta's lungs again.
Bro, that was awesome. Like, I almost thought, I was like, was that supposed to happen? Because that was kind of cool.
It was very cool. It is quick thinking, and you wouldn't think that would put out the fire, but it absolutely did. It was crazy, and it could have been a disaster.
Also, like, how did Great Muta know? Like, what if whatever is green is flammable? Like, you don't know.
Right. Just made it even worse. But so there's that. And then with the whole electrifying thing. So they told us the cage was electrified. Mm-hmm. They never said it was just the top of the cage. So Funk and Muta are climbing all over this cage, la, 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 and nothing is happening to them. No. And then finally, Muta touches one part of the top of the cage, and there's a quick popping sound like he got zapped. And Muta yanks his hand away and shakes it violently and husha-frasha all over it. And then they keep crawling up there. That is the only time during this whole match that we see any evidence of electricity running through this cage. Terry Funk is even hanging from the top at one point, and he might as well be floating on a cloud like Lakitu from the Super Mario games. This sucked monkey ass.
It really did. Like, I didn't know, like, the whole electric, like the thought of having an electrified cage, that's cool. But what would be cool is if, like, every time you ran into it, you got like zapped or whatever. Like, I agree with you, Justin. I agree with you. But hey, Sting was looking into his future when he looks at the Great Muta, aka Wolfpack Sting with the red and black paint. because that's what it looked like.
Oh, I thought you were saying he was going to turn Japanese one day. That would be wild.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah. I think JR here, he can't help but take jabs at the WWF. He mentions that Sting started his career as part of a tag team called the Blade Runners, but that his former partner has not progressed like Sting has. His former partner became the Ultimate Warrior.
Which at this point he had progressed. I would say
He
him
wasn't
and
a
Sting,
good wrestler, but
no, but
he
like,
was rapidly getting to the top of the WWF.
and I would say him and Sting they had similar like auras and vibes, with the bright
Mhm.
colors and like the charisma and stuff. But
Yeah.
oh man, but hey, at one point, did you notice Terry? I don't know if it was his pinky finger or his ring finger, but it was pouring blood. Like, ouch! And I think it got in Ric Flair's hair too because there was some pink in there.
I don't know what happened to his finger, but yeah, it was like pouring blood. That was
Ooh.
weird.
I have to think it had something to do with like the nail maybe getting ripped off, and that hurts me bad.
Maybe.
But Funk and Flair, as you said, they're climbing to the top at one point, and I'm just like, I don't know why they didn't do this, but I was just waiting for one of them to like get zapped and go flying off like Jurassic Park style. Like that would have been so cool.
But again, like this is dumb. Like if the wrestlers know that the top of the cage is electrified, and even though the roof is slanted in, so it's harder to escape, why climb that high? Like you're not going to forget those two things when you're climbing up the sides of that cage. Oh.
Maybe they thought I'd rather get electrocuted than get beat up. But I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of it, but it's not working.
I hate this. I hate this.
Hey, but there was a funny moment. Great Muda, he crawled under the ring at one point, like real fast. And it like even made me giggle out loud because I was like, man, what's he doing under there? But even better, they show him like 20 or 30 seconds later in the ring. He has no new weapon. Nothing has changed. It's like he just crawled under there for a quick breather and crawled out the other side.
He was going to say hi to Hornswoggle.
Ayo. Lord Humperdink's probably down there too.
Yeah, probably.
Well, if anything, Justin, this pay-per-view has taught me this match, JR should really, really enunciate funk. Because, oh my God.
Yeah, at one point he said like funk and Muda, and it didn't sound like he said funk and Muda.
Exactly. Yep. Every time.
He also shouldn't say things like, if Muda gets electrified, he might become a fried wonton, because he did say that.
He said that?
He said that.
Oh my God. I mean, I love wontons. They are the best.
That's beside the
point. Made me want Chinese food real bad. But no, I get it.
Finally, the finish comes. Chaos in the ring, including Bruno Sammartino hitting a solid right hand on Great Muta. Gary Hart tries to get in the ring, but Ole Henderson lands a shot to the face, causing the towel to fly out of Gary Hart's hand. So Bruno thinks Gary threw in the towel. Well, that is once Bruno notices that the towel landed on his back and squirms around like a gorilla trying to pull it off. Ric Flair and Sting win the match in 21 minutes, 55 seconds. Tell me your thoughts on this match before we go to final thoughts on the show.
It had all the right pieces. It did. I like the talent involved. Obviously, I love Sting. Ric Flair was hot. It just wasn't executed well. That cage was not necessary. It just was kind of sloppy. There was that, what was that? The Tower of Doom. It was like a light version of that where they just didn't think it through. I think it could have been really good without the distraction of the cage. What did you think?
You know, that was a note that I wrote to myself, is that this match without the cage would have been a fantastic match. Like it was really exciting. There was so much back and forth. They were telling a good story in there. And the other thing is too, you have 4 of the best wrestlers in the world at that time, and you gimmick this match up with some hokey ass half electrified cage. Like it wasn't necessary.
Yeah, and not that it would make it better, but I feel like that would have made more sense for the Road Warriors and Skyscrapers match or something, just because they're kind of gimmicky in their character and whatnot. Like, this didn't need it.
Yeah, or even the 6-man with the Midnight Express and the Samoans. Like, this wasn't it. This wasn't it. But we go back to Jim Ross and Bob Caudle, who plugged the 900 number again, as we see a caption saying that the number is no longer active, which just makes me want to call it and see what it goes to now.
Yes.
They recap the night, promote Starrcade 1989, and roll credits. That's the end of the show. So overall, what'd you think?
It's not one of my favorites. I typically love I actually usually prefer the WCW/NWA shows over the WWF pay-per-views at this point in time. It was just very, very hard for me to focus on this show. And I don't know if it's because we had just been recording back to back to try to get them out, but it was like I had to really like freaking I use my phone to take notes. I had to switch to a pen and paper because I could not stop like going to Twitter or Facebook because I was
Right.
bored. And maybe it's because there weren't a lot of stakes in this pay-per-view, but I will say I appreciated what they did involving Halloween. I like a Halloween pay-per-view, and obviously it grows into something way cooler. It was just a little disappointing because I thought the first one would be a little cooler, but as for the main event, I loved seeing Ric Flair and Sting tag together. So that kind of made it for me. What did you think?
You know, as we've been going through 1989 and we're getting towards the end of it now, there have been so many WCW shows that we've watched and we've gone, oh my God, like that show was incredible, top to bottom. So many good matches, the flow and everything. And this was just, it seemed like a hiccup. It didn't seem like there was any flow to the show. The crowd didn't really seem into it. And part of that could be because they were in Philadelphia and it is Bruno's town, but it's also historically a big WWF town. And so that might have affected things too. I'm kind of on this one.
Yeah, I look forward to the next Halloween Havoc more than like I look forward to like the Survivor Series matches or anything like that because it wasn't a matter of like, oh, this match is going too long or oh, the wrestling's sucking on this. It was just kind of there. It kind of felt just like a regular TV episode of WCW, which I feel like going forward, that's what it should be. Just like a special episode on TV, not really a pay-per-view, but that's beside the point because that was like more than 30 years ago and we can't change things now. But let's talk about what happened after the pay-per-view. I don't have a whole lot here, but Ric Flair and Terry Funk continue to feud over the NWA World Championship until November, but then the JTEX Corporation wasn't done with the combination of Flair, Sting, and Ole Anderson. If only the Horsemen added one more member.
Who could that be?
Well, never mind. I was trying to come up with like a really good one, like to come over from WWE, or WWF, but then I couldn't think of anybody. The only other thing of note coming out this pay-per-view is that in a November TV taping, Tommy Rich, who, the guy we saw on the show that we were like, hey, who is that guy? He knocked longtime referee Tommy Young down to the mat, and Tommy Young's neck hit the ropes on the way down, and it injured his neck, and it ended his ref career. That's so sad.
Yeah, I know. And Tommy Young was such a good referee. Like I loved watching him do his work in there. So
I know. Man, that's disappointing. Well, Justin, before we go, hit me with some more
Wrestle stats.
You want some wrestle stats? Let's do some wrestle stats right now. No real change in the most matches, wins, and losses thing right now, but we do have an update on the percentage of rematches out of the 211 matches we've watched. Only 9 of them have been rematches, so that's just 4.27%. So that's down from last week. And title matches, we did see a few on this show, 74 total title matches in the history of Wrestle Recap, but it wasn't enough to bring the percentage up. So that's down to 35.07% of all the matches we watched have been title matches. And hey, it's a new year, and that means over at Wrestle Stats, all the stats start all over again. In fact, when this show comes out, we're in the middle of posting the year-end final stats for 2024 in AEW, in WWE, ROH, TNA, and like I said, the counters have all restarted for the new year. So head on over on Twitter, on Blue Sky, and on Threads to @WrestleStats, and you can keep the stats along with me. It's kind of fun. But what about Michelle online?
Y'all don't even want to follow me on Twitter right now because I am obnoxious with this college football playoff. It was funny. I know this guy, his name's Pastor Phil. He's pastor, obviously, and he followed me on Twitter. And I was like, oh no, I'm obnoxious, but also now I have to watch what I say on Twitter because Pastor Phil is following me. But y'all can follow me at Michelle Tater. I'm on Threads and like Blue Sky, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't do a whole lot over there. So just tweet me. We can talk wrestling. We can talk whatever the heck you want. You can ask me all the dirty secrets from ghost hunters. That's always fun. But yeah, and really check out Justin's wrestle stats. He worked so hard on those. They're really cool. AEW responded and like reposted it this week. So that's a really big deal. Good job, Justin.
Thank you.
Baron Corbin tweeted me because we're best friends, but
Hey,
that's
that could be kind of along the same lines soon for all we know. Because apparently he was backstage here recently, but who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? Well, Justin Tate, what do we have for our second show of 2025?
We are going back north to the WW. Well, this was in Philadelphia. You can't go much more north than that.
We're going to Canada.
Yeah. Back to the WWF for Survivor Series 1989. 5 matches. The shortest is 20 minutes.
Oh, God. Oh, God.